In early 2017, a 27-year-old married teacher named Jessica Welch Greene was reportedly seen kissing a teenage basketball player in front of other students in the parking lot of the Davie County, North Carolina high school, where she worked at the time. The young man she was seen kissing also bragged to his friends about hooking up with his teacher in her car. Word got around, and an investigation was launched. Detectives found evidence proving that Greene had an ongoing, inappropriate relationship with the victim, and they had even discussed the possibility of getting married after he finished school. Greene was arrested for her misconduct, but managed to avoid jail time and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. She was also required to register as a offender for 30 years and to inform her probation officer of all her social media accounts. In 2019, Greene's probation officer learned that she had failed to disclose 16 of her social media accounts and was giving her daughter rides to and from a dance studio where she wasn't allowed to go due to the presence of minors. While there was no evidence of inappropriate interactions with minors on the social media accounts, the prosecutor accused Greene of not taking her probation seriously. Greene was convicted of failure to register online identifiers and received a suspended prison sentence along with 90 days in jail. Number 20. Jude Hill. 42-year-old British mother of one, Jude Hill was vacationing in Thailand in 2024 when she was arrested on Christmas morning for wildly inappropriate behavior in the lobby of Pattaya Hotel. According to police, she had intercourse on top of a glass table in plain view of the public and attempted to flee the scene when police arrived. Officers caught up with Hill and subdued her, and she was seen hurling insults at law enforcement in viral footage which showed her handcuffed and being taken into custody. 5 days after her arrest, Hill broke her silence, telling Daily Mail Australia that she had been set up by corrupt officials and denying that she had intercourse on top of a hotel lobby table. She admitted that she had been drinking alcohol that night and that she was intoxicated, but suggested that her beverages had been drugged. According to Hill's version of events, she and her boyfriend were trying to get a hotel room when they were told that there were no vacancies. They sat down on a sofa in the lobby, and once the police arrived, Hill's boyfriend fled into the darkness. She claimed that the authorities threw her into a feces-infested jail cell until 5 p.m. on Christmas Day, where the facility's janitors supposedly ignored her request to clean the cell. Hill's son came to her rescue and posted her bail. She said her boyfriend was unapologetic for bailing on her at the scene and that she'll stick his face on the front page if the price is right. Number 19. Christina Hayes. More than 130 drug-related cases fell under scrutiny in San Francisco in 2023 after a veteran narcotics officer's affair with a confidential informant came to light. The relationship between 42-year-old Christina Hayes and the informant was discovered after the informant's arrest in the East Bay. During the arrest, the suspect made officers aware of her status as a confidential informant for Hayes, and a search of the woman's phone turned up damning evidence of the affair, including intimate photos of the officer. Sources told the San Francisco Standard that Hayes unsuccessfully attempted to get special treatment for the informant. Hayes was removed from the narcotics division and reassigned elsewhere in June of 2023 following the discovery of the relationship, and she was subsequently accused of impeding an active criminal investigation and divulging confidential information. At the time, Hayes had been with the department for 17 years and had been working on drug cases since as early as 2018. Law enforcement officials declined to comment on the matter, citing an ongoing investigation, and court documents did not disclose the specific details regarding the allegations against Hayes. As a result of the matter, however, at least 100 drug cases were dropped, while dozens more fell under review, including both federal and state cases. Speaking with the Standard in June of 2023, public defender Mano Raju speculated that Hayes' alleged misconduct could affect thousands of cases. The extent of the damage is unclear, however, as updates on the matter have not been forthcoming. Number 18. Kellie Metz. In 2022, a civilian witness in Comal County, Texas, overheard suspicious moaning coming from the direction of a law enforcement vehicle outside a fried chicken restaurant. David Brackage threw a rock at the police cruiser to let whoever was inside know that he could hear them and was charged with criminal mischief. An internal investigation found that Sergeant Kellie Metz and Deputy Patrick Byrne had turned their body cameras off at the time of the incident. They had also failed to report the damage to the cruiser from the rock that Brackage through. Metz initially denied being intimate with Byrne, claiming that she had been teaching him how to conduct felony traffic stops. She later admitted to being intimate with Byrne on 2 occasions, but claimed that the romantic trysts occurred at her home rather than on duty. When questioned about why she never told her superiors about the relationship, Metz claimed that her interactions with Byrne were a mere fling and that she never planned to pursue anything serious with the deputy. Both Metz and Byrne were fired for their alleged dishonesty, and the criminal mischief charge against Brackage was dropped. Number 17. Angela Barnes. In October 2024, 45-year-old teacher Angela Barnes was accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a former student at Carroll Middle School in Keller, Texas. She fell under investigation after law enforcement received a tip about her alleged misconduct, which reportedly occurred in June and July of 2024. Barnes was charged with 2 crimes, including an improper relationship between an educator and a student. Police disclosed few details beyond stating that the relationship was over and that they do not believe there are any other victims. The current status of the case is unclear. Number 16. Amber Clavell and Jessica Elguindy. While working as a prison guard at Jeffrey Pearce Correctional Centre in northwest Sydney, Australia in 2024, 25-year-old mother of 2 Amber Clavell had an inappropriate relationship with a married inmate named Mark Kennedy. The 3-month affair began in January while 27-year-old Kennedy was serving time for armed robbery, and in April, Clavell discovered that she was pregnant with the inmate's child. During that time, Clavell exchanged text messages with her friend and co-worker, 25-year-old Jessica Elguindy, who was also having an inappropriate relationship with a prisoner named Bo Jones. The women used code names to refer to their illicit lovers, with Clavell referring to Kennedy as Molly, while Elguindy called Jones Bella. After finding out she was pregnant, Clavell sent Elguindy a message stating that the morning after pill had failed her. She also wrote that Kennedy was very understanding about the situation and that they had not yet decided what to do about the pregnancy. Just a week later, however, Kennedy broke up with Clavell because he was jealous of her interactions with other inmates. The relationship was ultimately discovered by Clavell's superiors, and an internal investigation found that she had smuggled methamphetamine and tobacco into the prison for Kennedy. Clavell was also accused of misusing her access to the prison's computer system to look up information about her incarcerated lover, including details about his wife, who was listed as his primary contact. Both Clavell and Elguindy were arrested for their inappropriate conduct. Clavell was charged with engaging in an intimate relationship with an inmate, bringing contraband into the prison, and accessing or modifying restricted data. Elguindy, who supposedly had inappropriate relationships with 2 inmates, was charged with engaging in an intimate relationship with an inmate, accessing restricted data, and misconducting herself as a public office holder. According to the most recent available updates, Elguindy pleaded guilty to all counts and is awaiting sentencing, while Clavell has yet to enter a plea. Number 15. Catherina Cat Voss. 30-year-old U.S. Naval officer Corey Allen Voss was shot dead in Newport News, Virginia, on April 30, 2007 after his wife, Catherina, sent him to retrieve money from an ATM in the middle of the night. In what appeared to be a targeted execution, he was sitting in his truck when he was struck by 5 bullets. Suspicion naturally turned toward Catherina, who had a somewhat shady past when it came to her romantic relationships. She and Corey had met 8 years earlier when she was married to another military man who was deployed overseas, and she divorced her first husband after becoming pregnant with Corey's child. Kat did not behave like a married woman, according to those who witnessed her behavior over the years. She supposedly had reckless spending habits and preferred partying over parenting. In 2006, just as she had done in the past, she met a new boyfriend named Michael Draven while Corey was deployed at sea. Draven portrayed himself as a highly successful filmmaker and director, when in reality he lived in a trailer with his mother and delivered newspapers part-time while also participated in paid medical trials as a human guinea pig. But Kat continued to date him even after discovering the truth about his unglamorous existence, and she even told a friend that she planned to divorce Corey in order to be with Draven. Knowing she had no way to support herself without Corey's military salary, she and Draven devised a plan to kill him and collect on his $400,000 life insurance policy, along with the $100,000 in widow's benefits that she stood to gain from Corey's untimely demise. Surveillance footage of Corey's murder showed an intruder entering his truck and shooting him while he attempted to withdraw cash from an ATM. At Catherina's request, Kat's friend anonymously tipped off the police, who noticed a visible upgrade in the widow's lifestyle just weeks after Corey's murder. Within 3 months, Kat had squandered all but $900 of the $100,000 death benefit she had received. She spent the money on vacations, jewelry, an apartment for Draven, and other indulgences that she otherwise lacked the means to afford. Investigators placed a hold on the $400,000 life insurance payout, leaving Kat infuriated, and they finally gathered enough information to make an arrest after Draven was arrested for an unrelated crime. Through jailhouse phone calls, detectives were able to identify a man named David Runyon as the paid hitman who had killed Corey for Kat and Draven. All 3 suspects were arrested, and Kat and Draven quickly began to point the finger at one another as the alleged mastermind. Kat pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life without parole, while Draven and Runyon took their cases to trial. They were both found guilty, and Draven was sentenced to life in federal prison while Runyon received the death penalty. Runyon's sentence was recently commuted to life without parole, courtesy of President Joe Biden, drawing praise from death penalty opponents, while others believe that capital punishment is the only appropriate punishment for his actions. Number 14. Katie Hill. In October of 2019, 32-year-old U.S. lawmaker Katie Hill fell under investigation by the House of Representatives Ethics Committee amid allegations of an affair with a congressional aide. The accusations were first reported in the conservative blog Red State, which also posted intimate photos of Hill and accused the California Democrat of engaging in a consensual 3-way romance with a female staff member and the woman's husband. Hill denied the affair while acknowledging the previous relationship with a female staffer and admitting that it was inappropriate. Because the relationship had occurred before Hill was elected, it did not violate any rules, but Hill nevertheless resigned amid the investigation. She expressed feeling extremely violated by the publishing of her explicit photos, which she blamed on her ex-husband, and said that she was exploring all avenues for legal recourse. In her final congressional speech, Hill called out the misogynistic culture and double standards surrounding her case, stating that while she was leaving, there were men who had been credibly accused of even worse acts yet remained in their positions with minimal scrutiny. She later wrote in a New York Times op-ed that as rumors of her affair with a staffer spread, her employees received threats and suspicious correspondence, including an envelope filled with suspicious white powder. Hill claimed that her family was also harassed and followed, and this was one of the factors that led her to decide that it was best to step down, even if she believed in her own innocence. Number 13. Andrea Lukey. 46-year-old aerospace engineer David Lukey was well aware of his estranged wife Andrea's multiple affairs, but he wasn't happy about it, and he eventually snapped in September of 2023 after arriving at the couple's home in Dorset, England, to find the doors locked and an unfamiliar car in the driveway. Upon entering the residence, David found Andrea half-dressed and noticed signs of another man in the house. He searched the house and found Andrea's latest lover, Christopher Andrews, in the kitchen. At the time of the incident, David and Andrea were separated and living apart from one another. They had an agreement in place that allowed David to come to the residence to see the couple's children and do his laundry. As part of the agreement, David would continue to pay the mortgage as long as Andrea didn't have any other men at the house. When he crossed paths with Andrews, David flew into a rage and punched Andrews in the lip before going on a rampage throughout the home, smashing 2 TVs, destroying family photos, and attempting to drag Andrea off the property. Andrea told police that Andrews did not retaliate against her enraged husband and that he had even tried to calm David down. David ultimately admitted to assault and causing criminal damage and was sentenced to a 12-month community order. He was spared from jail after successfully arguing that he had acted under extreme provocation stemming from Andrea's multiple affairs. Number 12. Hayley Weatherall. Multiple attempts were made on Ray Weatherall's life before his wife, Hayley Weatherall, his best friend, Glenn Pollard, and Pollard's daughter, Heather, were arrested for trying to kill him. The trio had previously tried to murder Ray by exploding a swimming pool heater, which left him with severe burns, by drowning him during a fishing trip, and by giving him a combination of insulin and sleeping pills. By the time Heather attempted to murder Ray for the 4th time by shooting him in the face, He had been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Up until that point, Ray had remained unaware that his cheating wife and best buddy of 2 decades were trying to kill him so they could start a new life together. Police learned of the repeated murder attempts from Ray's niece, who tipped off law enforcement after learning about Hayley and Glenn's affair. Hayley, Glenn, and Heather were eventually arrested for their crimes, and in 2018 they were sentenced to prison time. The defendants tried chalking the incidents up to accidents, but the judge overseeing the case accused Hayley of growing impatient as she waited for her husband to die. Heather and Hayley were sentenced to 15 years behind bars, while Glenn received a 17-year sentence. In a shocking twist, Ray forgave Hayley for trying to murder him and even visited her in prison. As of late 2024, he's still alive but still suffering from cancer and is hoping he beats the disease so that he lives to see Hayley's release. He continues to visit Hayley and is hoping that they can rekindle their marriage if he survives the remaining 9 years of her sentence. Number 11, Patricia Prewitt. Mother of 5, Patricia Patty Prewitt quickly became a prime suspect in the murder of her husband, Bill, who was gunned down in his sleep at the couple's Holden, Missouri home in 1984. The intruder had cut the phone lines and power to the house, making it difficult for the family to navigate through the dark interior and impossible for them to call for help from inside the residence. Prewitt denied killing her husband and claimed that she was also a victim of the home invasion. Her and Bill's children support their mother's innocence, and Prewitt refused to take a plea deal because she said she was unwilling to admit to something she didn't do. There was also ample evidence to suggest that the investigation was flawed and that detectives had unfairly narrowed their sights on Prewitt due to the multiple affairs that she had had throughout her marriage to Bill. Prewitt and those campaigning in her favor called out the authorities for approaching the case with a gender bias. Bill had also had affairs during he and Patricia's marriage, and many believed that Patricia was being unfairly targeted because she's a woman. If Prewitt had accepted the plea deal, she would have served a 7-year prison sentence. After taking her case to trial and being found guilty, she was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 50 years. She spent the next 40 years behind bars while continuing the fight to clear her name. Finally, in December of 2024, Prewitt was granted clemency as part of President Joe Biden's historic pardoning initiative. At 75 years old and as Missouri's longest-serving female prisoner, she was released from prison to spend her remaining years in the company of her children and her 13 grandkids. Number 10. Tasheena Majors. While working at a prison in Newark, New Jersey in late 2020, 42-year-old corrections officer Tasheena Majors was accused of having an inappropriate year-long relationship with an inmate. She held a senior role at her workplace when allegations of the affair surfaced, prompting an internal investigation which resulted in her arrest and the loss of her job. According to the state attorney general, Majors repeatedly engaged in intercourse with a male prisoner whom she had supervisory or disciplinary power over. Because inmates are considered incapable of consenting to intimacy due to this power imbalance, these types of relationships are illegal. Based on the investigation's findings, Majors was charged with assault and let go from her nearly $80,000 per year position. The outcome of the case is unclear. Number 9. Nikki Entzel. While responding to a house fire in Bismarck, North Dakota in January of 2020, emergency personnel found 42-year-old Chad Entzel dead inside the residence with a gunshot wound to the head. There was also evidence of an accelerant being used to start the fire, indicating that a deliberate arson had occurred. Investigators naturally turned their attention toward Chad's wife, 38-year-old Nikki Entzel, who had recently taken out a renter's insurance policy on the home with a Canadian man named Earl Howard. Nikki and Earl were having an affair, and it was serious enough for them to even have a joint checking account. Chad remained unaware of Nikki's infidelity even when she spent several days outside the home leading up to his murder, claiming that she had traveled to Minneapolis to train for a new job. Further investigation revealed that the secret couple had painstakingly planned Chad's murder ahead of time, and law enforcement's suspicions only grew when Nikki gave conflicting accounts of the events leading up to her husband's death. Authorities charged Nikki and Earl with various crimes relating to the tragedy. Earl pleaded guilty to arson and conspiracy to commit murder in early 2022 and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Nikki's case went to trial several months later and she was found guilty of conspiracy to commit arson, conspiracy to commit murder, and conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence, resulting in a life sentence without the possibility of parole. She continues to maintain her innocence from behind bars. Number 8. Jennifer McLeod. In early 2016, 34-year-old substitute teacher Jennifer McLeod was accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a male student more than 2 years earlier. McLeod was filling in for an instructor at a Christian school in Valparaiso, Indiana, when she allegedly kissed the student several times. According to investigators, the two also exchanged inappropriate photos, and the student accused her of sending him flirty text messages and saying that she wished he was 18. McLeod was charged with 2 felony counts of seduction in connection with her alleged misconduct. Records show the court proceedings continued for several years until the charges were dismissed for unspecified reasons in March of 2018. Number 7. Kaylia Hevia. After being arrested in Seminole County, Florida for driving with a suspended license and possession of Xanax in February of 2021, 29-year-old Kaylia Hevia was ordered to serve her probation at a Christian drug and addiction rehab called Teen Challenge. During her time there, she violated the facility's rules by kissing another female and was charged with violating her probation. As a result, she was sentenced to 120 days in county lockup. Hevia accused the authorities of discriminating against her based on her orientation, thus putting her sobriety in jeopardy. She appealed her sentence, but it was unlikely that her case would be heard before she finished serving her 4-month punishment. Prosecutors challenged Hevia's claims, stating that she had been kicked out of the program due to dishonesty, not for kissing another woman. In a statement, the state attorney's office described Hevia's narrative as factually incorrect and misleading. The outcome of the case is unclear. Number 6. Hayley Reid. In 2018, a Kentucky choir director was accused of violating a teenage student at Oldham County High School. 38-year-old Hayley Reid didn't deny the inappropriate relationship, but instead argued that the victim was old enough to legally consent to it. In fact, she admitted to having intercourse with the teen at least 8 times on school property over a 2-month period, resulting in her arrest on multiple felony charges. If convicted on all counts, she could have faced up to 100 years in prison. Reid had been working for the school district for 10 years and was married at the time of her arrest. Her attorney, Greg Sims, argued that under a specific state law, teenagers can consent to intimate contact under certain circumstances, but under another state law, Reid's conduct constituted a crime due to her position of authority. The defense argued that the two laws were conflicting, thereby warranting a favorable outcome for Reid. She was ultimately sentenced to 5 years in prison with the possibility of parole upon the completion of a rehabilitative program for offenders of her type. During her sentencing hearing, her victim delivered an impact statement describing her as a predator and a monster who went out of her way to isolate him from his friends and family, who deserved to go to prison. Number 5. Beth Van Duyne. Texas U.S. Representative Beth Van Duyne and Representative Rich McCormick of Georgia are staunch conservatives who have voiced concerns over how they believe transgender rights will negatively impact society, but their moral compass apparently did not forbid them from having a relationship with one another, despite the questionable timing of the romance following news in May of 2024 that McCormick and his wife of 12 years were in the process of divorcing. News of McCormick's divorce came amid growing suspicion surrounding the nature of his relationship with Van Duyne. His estranged wife, Dr. Deborah Miller, had reportedly hinted at the possibility of her husband having an affair, and McCormick and Van Duyne had been seen holding hands beneath a table during a House Republican caucus meeting. Speaking to the Daily Mail, Van Duyne confirmed her relationship with McCormick, stating his marriage has been over for quite some time, as I understand it. She went on to describe herself and McCormick as single empty nesters and referred to the situation as a personal issue. Number 4. Erin Ward. In April of 2024, 45-year-old substitute teacher Erin Ward was criminally charged with having an inappropriate relationship with a student in Douglas County, Nebraska. Her arrest came after she and the victim were caught in a state of undress in a vehicle by officers who were responding to a call about a suspicious car at around 3 in the morning. The teen tried to flee by driving the vehicle away, but he crashed the car. While investigating the scene, deputies found Ward's employee ID. She reportedly admitted to having intercourse with the student and was subsequently booked into jail. The affidavit containing details of the inappropriate relationship was sealed, and the case appears to be ongoing. Number 3. Fani Willis. Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis is tasked with prosecuting Donald Trump and 18 other defendants in an election meddling case, but her role was challenged following the discovery of her affair with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, whom she hired to assist with the case. Willis and Wade both admitted to the affair, claiming that it began after Willis hired Wade, but they still faced scrutiny due to concerns that their relationship had compromised their integrity. In December of 2024, Willis was officially disqualified from the case. The decision came after a lower court initially ruled that either Willis or Wade would have to step down, but a higher court later determined that it was inappropriate for either of the attorneys to remain on the case. Willis was widely criticized for spending a large amount of public funds on romantic getaways with Wade, among other questionable practices. But the saga isn't over yet. Willis wants back on the case and is currently fighting to get her disqualification reversed. She has asked a higher court to review and overturn the lower court's decision to remove her, arguing that the ruling qualifies as an overreach of the court's authority. Number 2. Molly Brodak. Blake Butler was faced with an unexpected tragedy in 2020 when his depressed 39-year-old wife, Molly Brodak, passed away. The couple had met several years earlier in Augusta, Georgia, and instantly connected over their shared love of writing. In his quest to understand Brodak's death, Butler discovered that his wife, a university professor, had slept with one of her students just weeks after their wedding. This was just one of multiple affairs that Brodak had during the marriage, which Butler discovered while looking through his deceased wife's phone for pictures to use at her upcoming funeral. As heartbreaking as these discoveries were, Butler would later describe feeling strangely relieved because he realized that he hadn't failed Brodak. His tortured spouse had built a world of lies, and it seemed as though she could no longer cope with the suffering she endured as a result of a difficult childhood, mental illness, and the inherently deceptive lifestyle she had adopted as her version of normal. Butler documented his journey in a memoir called Molly, and has since remarried, but still carries with him the lessons he learned from his ill-fated relationship with his late wife. Stay put after number 1 if you have not yet seen our release about when bridesmaids go wrong. It's a good one, and you'll certainly enjoy it if you liked today's video. Number 1. Prapaporn Choeiwadkoh. During the spring of 2024, footage of a married Thai politician in bed with her adopted son, a Buddhist monk, went viral. The video was reportedly filmed by the 64-year-old husband of 45-year-old Prapaporn Choeiwadkoh, who drove 5 hours before catching his wife and 24-year-old son red-handed in the act. He had become suspicious that they were having an inappropriate relationship and had devised a plan to find out the truth. In the video, the husband reportedly asked Prapaporn and his adopted son, Fra Maha, if they were happy. Prapaporn defended the situation, claiming that she and Fra were simply talking and that nothing nefarious was going on. But the explanation didn't exactly fly, considering the fact that the woman was undressed. Prapaporn was subsequently suspended from her political position pending the outcome of an investigation. Welsh bridesmaid Caitlin Haston was attending her sister's wedding at Sawton Hall in Suckdin on August the 25th of 2018. The teenager, who'd reportedly been drinking throughout the day, got into an argument with her parents and began causing a ruckus. At around 1 a.m., the authorities were called to the venue and found Haston outside. She was wearing her wedding dress and no shoes, while displaying obvious signs of intoxication that included struggling to maintain her balance. 19-year-old Haston refused to give the police her name and claimed that she was going to walk home but refused to disclose where she lived. She ignored pleas for her to go to bed at the hotel and persisted in her belligerence, eventually ended up in handcuffs. Haston continued her aggressive behavior and reportedly screamed all the way on the drive to the station, where upon arrival, she refused to go into a cell. As officers tried removing her clothing for processing, Haston kicked out at PC Sarah Hughes Jones, striking her in the knee twice, causing pain. She reportedly told the officer, "I hope your kids have Asperger's and hate you," during the altercation. At the September hearing, The forensic psychology student apologized and stated that alcohol had gotten the better of her. Haston admitted assault as well as being drunk and disorderly and was given a fine. Number 7. Eden Boswell. In June of 2014, Eden and Elvis Boswell, who'd appeared on the reality TV series My Big Fat American Gypsy Wedding, were at a wedding in High Point, North Carolina. 22-year-old Eden was the maid of honor at the event. Shortly before it could commence, however, the bride noticed that her purse, containing the wedding rings and cash meant for the honeymoon, was missing. Law enforcement was called to the scene, and a family member told them that they'd seen Eden with the purse earlier in the day, easily identifying her by the angel wings tattoo on her back. The maid of honor, who was 8 months pregnant at the time, had stolen the purse and taken it back to 24-year-old Elvis, who was waiting in their truck. The couple stashed it in the back of the truck but then accidentally locked themselves out before Elvis could leave. Officers asked to search the vehicle and the former reality stars gave them permission to do so. The wedding rings and cash were recovered, and as the police searched Elvis, they found a $100 bill that had been marked honeymoon in his pocket. The total value of the stolen property was reported as $6,100, and the Boswells were arrested on charges of felony larceny. The couple whose wedding they'd attended chose not to disclose their identities, and their ceremony resumed in the theft's aftermath. Number 6. Amanda Willis. On January the 6th of 2017, Amanda Willis was the maid of honor at the wedding of her best friend, Jennifer Jones, to David Butler. After becoming intoxicated, 35-year-old Willis caused a panic-inducing scene less than half an hour into the reception held in Punta Gorda, Florida. She'd reportedly downed an entire bottle of Fireball before she started asking guests for car keys and eventually stole a set belonging to the best man, who was Butler's brother. The woman then nearly hit him as she tried to drive off in his vehicle. After she was wrestled out of the car, Willis went back inside and started chugging a bottle of Captain Morgan. Charlotte County deputies were eventually called to the scene after Willis's rampage had culminated with her punching a male guest in the face. When officers arrived, the intoxicated maid of honor claimed that she was experiencing a medical emergency and started shaking as if she was having a seizure. Willis was taken to a hospital where she continued behaving erratically. She reportedly exposed her breast to the police officers, kicked over her bedpan, and assaulted 2 medics. Following her discharge, Willis was taken to the county jail on charges of larceny, battery, grand theft of a motor vehicle, and violation of probation. She'd previously been arrested 8 times in the county on various charges. Following her wedding ruin outburst and consequent 9th arrest, Jones ended their relationship. Number 5. Jennifer Wheeler. Ohio woman Jennifer Wheeler, aged 28, was driving to her sister's wedding in April of 2008 while her 2 young children were in the back seat. During the drive, Wheeler lost control of her vehicle and struck a tree on a Clermont County road. State troopers arrived at the scene and found the woman, who was wearing a yellow bridesmaid dress at the time, in an apparent state of intoxication. When she was booked at the Clermont County Jail, the police discovered nearly 24 Xanax pills which the bridesmaid had hidden in her purse and bra. Wheeler maintained that the medicine had been prescribed to her. She faced a number of charges that included driving under the influence, felony drug possession, and child endangering. During a subsequent court appearance, Wheeler pleaded not guilty and stated, "I've never been in any trouble, and I'm a great mother. I wasn't under the influence of alcohol." Number 4. Heather Lynn TikTok incident. In December of 2022, a video went viral on TikTok with photos of a bridesmaid as she appeared to be touching the groom inappropriately during a wedding shoot. It was shared by the bride, Heather Lynn, who tied the knot with husband Travis in October. The mother of 2 from North Carolina quipped, "I guess I'm getting a sister wife," in a video that was viewed over 19 million times. The unnamed bridesmaid was seen linking arms with the groom and touching him in the groin region. She tightly gripped his hand, even as he was kissing his bride. While the party was striking various poses for the photographer, Lynn was apparently oblivious to her behavior and continued smiling for the camera. Many users reacted to the story in outrage, commenting that Travis and the woman in question were having an affair. In a follow-up video, however, Lynn revealed that there was nothing nefarious about the bridesmaid's behavior. She claimed that the woman was tipsy during the shoot and had no choice but to grab onto Travis for stability, as the groomsman beside her was an amputee. Travis made an appearance in the video to confirm Lynn's reports, saying that he was sorry to disappoint with the truth, that he was not a cheater, and the bridesmaid was not a home wrecker. The most liked comments on the Part 2 video, however, remained those from users expressing their skepticism and insisting for Lynn to let them know when their suspicions about the affair were confirmed. Number 3. Linda Endicott. 25-year-old Linda Endicott was the maid of honor during a wedding reception at the Dockside Guest Quarters and Restaurant in York on May the 21st of 2011. Shortly after 10 p.m., police and the ambulance service were called to the venue after Endicott had displayed erratic and aggressive behavior. The caller reported that she'd grabbed a family member by the throat and started hitting them. She'd also dropped a glass and cut her leg on the broken shards. Officers found her in a grey SUV in the parking lot, around which a large crowd had gathered. According to the police report, friends and family had struggled to get her in the vehicle and take her to the hospital. Officers described Endicott as highly intoxicated and combative. They took her into custody on a misdemeanor charge of disorderly conduct. After she was treated at the York Hospital, she was booked into the York County Jail in Alfred after midnight. Endicott spent the night in a cell before she was released on a $300 cash bail the following morning. Number 2. Jane Pountney. As reported by the British press, reality TV star and glamour model Katie Price had been best friends with Jane Pountney since the former was in her mid-teens. Pountney was a bridesmaid at 2 of Price's weddings, to her second husband, MMA fighter Alex Reid, and then to her third husband, actor and exotic dancer Kieran Hayler. Following the couple's wedding in the Bahamas, which took place in 2013, Price gave birth to a daughter. It was believed that around the time when the media personality became pregnant with Hayler's second child, he and Pountney had started having an affair. During a family holiday they'd taken to Cape Verde together in 2014, Price reported that she caught Pountney, who was also married at the time, as she was performing an intimate act on Hayler. It resulted in a confrontation, during the course of which Price struck Pountney with such force that she knocked one of her teeth out. Looking back on the fight, the glamour model later recalled, "I thought I was a cage fighter or something." Pountney pleaded for help from Hayler, who called the resort security, and they managed to pull Price off her. In the aftermath, Hayler admitted that he'd had at least 25 secret trysts with Pountney over a period of 7 months, leading up to the Cape Verde altercation. In spite of the affair, he and Price tried to make the marriage work, but eventually began divorce proceedings in 2018. Pountney's marriage also broke down in the scandal's wake. Price indicated in a subsequent interview that there'd be no reconciliation with her former best friend, stating, "Jane Pountney needs to go and die. That's all she needs to do. I hope she dies very painfully." Number 1. Leslie Falcone. In late August of 2012, Florida woman Leslie Falcone was stopped by law enforcement in Holmes Beach as she was returning from what was reported as a bachelorette meeting. The 27-year-old had been observed driving her Jeep at over 63 in an area where the limit was 45. Officers observed that Falcone had glassy eyes and detected the smell of alcohol on her breath. They conducted field sobriety tests, which the woman failed as she had trouble standing up. She was arrested and on the way to the station reportedly told officers, "This is what I get for being a bridesmaid." Falcone also spontaneously admitted that she'd had a few drinks before and after the bachelorette dinner. She was charged with DUI and later released from custody after posting a $1,500 bond. Thanks for watching. Would you rather not have intercourse for a year or not have a zip of alcohol for 5 years? And why? Let us know in the comments section below.